Hello and welcome to Cataclysm University. I'm your instructor Vormithrax, and this is course number 18, where I'm going to be covering the basics of vehicles. So this won't be an in-depth course on every aspect of vehicles, how to build them, how they work, and so on. I just want to show early game information for newer players about what vehicles are, what to look out for, and also the mechanics of driving. So that's all we're going to cover. I'm not going to try to build a vehicle or anything like that, but just the initial information that you need in order to get things moving with vehicles. So in the Cataclysm, vehicles are randomly seeded throughout the world during world generation, and they can come in all sorts of conditions. You can, on occasion, find pristine, undamaged vehicles that are just ready to hop in and drive off with, but for the most part they're going to be pretty heavily damaged, and you have to be aware of certain specific things about vehicles to know at a glance whether or not you can drive one. So let's take a look. So I'm just going to move north of our little starting shelter here. There is a vehicle spawned right here, and when you first see a vehicle you can tell at a glance in general how its condition is. The body condition or body parts that are showing can show wear and tear. It'll show fractures and cracks and so on if they've taken damage. So this one is in perfect condition, so you won't see any of that. But what you're looking for in particular, if you step up to a vehicle, you can use the examine, so hit E and then pick a direction to point at any portion of the vehicle. That's when the vehicle screen pops up. Alright, so what are we looking for here? I want to know basically, can I hop in this thing and drive it? Well, there's a few things that have to be true in order for you to drive a vehicle. First off, does it have gas and a battery? So this one is full gasoline and full battery, and you can see up here, vehicle tank 60 liters, full of gas, 60 liters of gas. It also has a car battery with 2500 capacity, and it is fully charged. So gas, battery, check, check. Both of those are good. The next thing you're going to look for is here, wheels. Does it have the wheels that it needs in order to drive? It says here as a quick reference that yes, it has enough wheels to be drivable. And then specifically this section here that shows the template for how this is built, you can use your arrow keys to move this cursor, the blue cursor, to the various positions. And you'll notice that on the four corners of this particular vehicle, which is a car, is where the wheels are located. So there's a 17-inch wheel on the front right or front left, a 17-inch wheel on the front right, then back right, and back left. So it has all the wheel requirements in order for this to be drivable. So gas and battery, yes. Wheels, yes. There is a couple of other things that you need to look at. In the driver's position, it must contain a working seat, and it must contain working controls. A seat belt is also important if you're smashing into things a lot, but to be drivable in any shape, it has to have controls and a seat. So, yes, it has both of those, so we're good there. And then finally, if you look for the engine right here, it's got to have an engine, alternator, and battery. The alternator you can do without, but you won't be able to charge the battery without it. But it's got to have enough charge in the battery to actually start up, and then it has to have an engine that's still operating. So if it's got an engine, if it's got wheels, if it's got gas in a battery, and if it has seats and controls, usually you can drive the vehicle. Now there are a few other things to be aware of. Some vehicles have security systems. Sometimes you won't have keys to operate the vehicle. In those cases, when you try to operate it, you'll get a message telling you of the problem. You might set off an alarm, and if you have to hotwire the car, you'll need a screwdriver. So as long as you have a screwdriver or a screwdriver kit, you can try to hotwire it to get it started. I'm not going to go into the details of the alarms and all of that for this particular course, but these are the things to know about and to look at when you're examining a vehicle to see if it's drivable. So once you've covered those basic things, you should be all set. So what about the mechanics of taking control and driving a vehicle? So we know this is a perfect condition operable vehicle. So the next thing to do is step either onto the driver's seat or next to it will also work. If you do Shift 6, that is the control vehicle command. Then it asks you where. I'm going to pick the direction of the chair that is the driver's seat, and it'll bring up a menu. I can either turn on the engine, honk the horn, turn on the headlights, turn on the dome lights, turn on the stereo, turn off or on the cruise control, set a reminder for the vehicle position, so it'll show on your main world map where that vehicle is located. And also, if it has multiple engines, you can control individual engines. This particular vehicle only has a single one, so we don't have to worry about it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to step onto the actual driver's position, close the door, hit Shift 6, and you can see down here it says you take control of the car's engine starts up. If I zoom out slightly, you can see a little reticle here. That reticle is very important. That shows you what direction your wheels are facing. So basically where you've got the steering wheel pointed currently. So if we were to apply gas to the vehicle, it would move in that direction. So how to move in a vehicle is a little strange at first. It's going to take practice. So I would recommend you do it in a safe environment as you can get. And you may even want to create a test world, summon a vehicle through the debug menu, and then practice driving around, because it is kind of strange at first. So it is a turn-based game, meaning no time passes until you actually tell it to advance the turn or you perform an action that causes movement points to be expended. So now that we have the vehicle started, you can see a little plume of exhaust out the back of the vehicle. That's another way to know whether a vehicle is running or not. But we've got the vehicle started, we're in the driver's seat, and we're ready to actually start moving. So what you want to look at is right here. It has now set an option here called miles per hour, mph, and it has two numbers. One number is your current setting for the speed, and the other one is your actual current speed. So basically one is your foot position on the accelerator, and the other one is the speed the vehicle is currently moving. So what you do to drive is you use the numeric keypad. You can use the 8 key to push down on the accelerator or move forward faster, or you can use the 2 key to pull that back and to let up on the gas. So I'm going to do that now, and you'll see what I mean. So if I tap the 8 key 3 times, 1, 2, 3, you can see that I have instructed the vehicle to move up to a speed of 30, although my current speed is still 0. So right now, because I haven't actually started passing any time or moved any turns, we're still not doing anything. But we have the accelerator set to move us at 30 miles per hour. So now that we've done that, all you have to do is tap the 5 key on the numeric keypad. That is basically a command in the game to pass time or let time proceed. And the game proceeds in 6-second rounds. So 6 seconds will go by when I press the 5 key, and what'll happen is nothing at first. It takes a couple of presses for the car to actually start moving. So I'm going to press it once now. Nothing has happened yet. You'll see our miles per hour is slowly increasing. It's at 6 now. If I tap it again, we've just moved 1 space and our speed is now up to 12. I'll tap it again. We're now up to speed 18. We're up to speed 24. And now we're up to speed 29. And that's where it's about to hold. It might go to actual 30, but you can see basically it ramps up the speed depending on the size of the vehicle, the engines, how much it weighs. Various things will affect how fast it accelerates or decelerates and so on. But we're actually moving. Now, you can't tell very well because I'm not moving the turns very quickly, but I'm going to start fast tapping the 5 key, and it's kind of like watching a movie 1 frame at a time. So the faster I tap the 5 key, the faster it will start to move or appear to move on the screen. So I'm just going to do that and keep moving straight forward. And you can see how it looks. And if I stop tapping, it just freezes again. So if I use the down key or the number 2 key on the keypad to set my speed back to 10, then I'm going to start tapping the 5 key again. And you can see we have now slowed down. Now, turning is accomplished with the 4 and the 6 key. So if I tap 4 or 6, you can see that it's turning the wheel, and then I tap 5, and it keeps moving that direction. If I turn back the other way, and then tap 5, it moves that direction, and I can spin around in a circle. Now, time is passing when I'm using the turn keys, the 4 and 6 keys, so you got to be a little careful, depending on how fast you're going, what kind of driving skill you have, the particular performance characteristics of the vehicle you're driving. Turning can be really, really tricky because it's done at angles like this, and some vehicles at some speeds you'll go from this position straight on to this position in no time at all. And if you've got a long vehicle like a bus, it looks really weird the way it ratchets the entire vehicle around. So that's where you really need to practice to get a feel for how much space you have to move and maneuver. Because when you see your vehicle go from a 90 degree or go from straight up to a 90 degree right hand in one big increment, it can be jarring. So I'm going to kick the speed up and I'll let some time pass. I'm just going to use the turn command here, and I'm trying to avoid bushes, so I'm specifically using my turning radius and my movement keys to avoid these bushes, because running things over can damage your vehicle. So I'm trying to avoid things. And the faster you go, the more time that passes before you're allowed to give another command. So if I crank this thing up to 200 miles per hour and I press the 5 key to let time pass, it might move 2 or 3 screens away before I can regain control and issue a turn command. So that's another thing to be very careful of. While I'm going really slow, like this 10 miles per hour, the vehicle's not going very far, and I can constantly adjust my course and adjust my speed with very little danger. But if I kick this thing up to 80 miles per hour, each time I tap this key, once it gets up to speed, it's traveling a much farther distance, and if something's ahead of me and I have to turn, all of a sudden I have less room to do that. You also have a greater chance of spinning out of control, like that. I just lost control of the vehicle and it started moving on its own. So you can see here it says you fumble with the car's controls, and basically more time passed before I was able to correct and change my direction. So I'm going to slow down again. I'm going to set the speed to 10. It does take time for it to decelerate, and then I can turn again. And all I'm doing is using the numeric keypad to speed up, slow down, turn. And like I said, this is a great thing to use a test world for. Just create a test world, use the debug menu to spawn a vehicle. You can pick from a big list of vehicles, and then you can kind of practice driving around. They'll spawn in perfect condition with gas and a battery, and you can just play around with the vehicles and see how they work. So this is driving a car, just driving in a circle, changing the speed, lots of fun. You can back up, so if you use the down arrow and you see a negative miles per hour, it'll come to a halt and then it'll start to back up. And you can turn while backing. It's a little funky to get used to, the directions to use, but then you can go forward again, like so. So it's a really, really cool system in the game. It's awesome to find a working vehicle. You can use the cargo capacity in the trunks to store items. You can ram things. You can travel long distances quickly. It's really, really awesome. But you've got to know how to figure out if a vehicle is drivable. And that's what we covered early on. You just got to check those various things to make sure it's drivable. Know how to get the vehicle started. Like I said, sometimes you'll have to deal with a security system or alarms and such, and I'll let you find the fun in that. If you have to hotwire it, you need a screwdriver, so that's the way to do that. And other than that, it's just practice driving. So let's do one other thing just for fun. Let's go ahead and use Shift 6 once again to stop driving. Now, here's another thing. You can let go of the controls and you can get out of the vehicle. It's still running. So if you wanted to charge the battery up, you could just leave it running for a while. That'll charge the battery at the expense of burning gas, but sometimes that's a good deal if you needed to get the battery charge up. And then once you're done, you can hop back in, hit Shift 6, and you're back in control of the car. Now, here's something that you can do. Let me get the car moving here. I want to get moving at 65 miles an hour. If you're moving at a fast rate of speed, and then you give the Shift 6 and say, let go of the controls, it's still moving. You're no longer in control. You can step out of the vehicle, and it'll ask you, do you want to dive from the moving vehicle? Sure. So, we have just dove out of the vehicle. We took some damage to all our locations based on how fast we were going. We ripped our backpack. We're slammed against the grass for 17 damage and knocked down. And if we just passed some time, the vehicle kept traveling until it finally rolled to a halt. And depending on what it hit, it'll stop sooner or later. But you can figure out your own fun things to do with that kind of a setup. Alright, so let's bring up the cheat menu again. And spawn a vehicle. Here's the huge list. Let's spawn An infantry fighting vehicle sounds fun. Mobile gun system. Armored car. I want something tough but not super big. Let's just do an armored car. Alright, so we're in an armored car. You can see that we've got limited visibility. We don't have wing mirrors. Those would help with our visibility. Or you could have camera systems installed, so you would have cameras installed in the various directions and be able to see around you. So that's another thing to consider about vehicles, is your view or visibility. We're going to start it up and speed it up, and we're just going to start driving over things. And let's head on into the town area, see if there's something we can find to run over. And there's a cop. We'll run the cop zombie over. We just line him up and smush. Dead cop. Always fun to take a trip through town, run a bunch of stuff over. Whoa! Apparently we hit something that caused us to skid out of control. So hopefully we get control back and don't hit a building. Oh, we just managed to skirt around the edge of that building. Now, realize we are taking damage to the vehicle, so this isn't free. We are damaging it, and over time it'll eventually get completely disabled. I want to spin around and get moving again so you can see what we've run over and what the effects have been. Now we got blinded. We got covered in bile by one of these zombies, so now we're driving blind at 60 miles an hour down the road. I'm going to cut our speed a bit. I have no idea where we're at or if we're even moving still. I think we are moving, and I think there were some vehicles up here. Oh, we just hit a building. Alright, good times with vehicles. Alright, let's spin this back around again. See what kind of carnage we created while we were driving blind through the roads. Ooh, look at that. Shock brute. Let's crank the speed way up. I'm not certain we actually managed to kill him. Oh, we hit that vehicle. Okay, let's head off into the wilderness here, and I'll show you the last thing I wanted to demonstrate. Alright, so hitting all of those zombies, hitting the building, hitting the vehicle, running over all these bushes is causing damage. So I'm going to bring the vehicle to a stop. Bring it to a stop. We're going to stop driving, and we're going to examine our vehicle. So if we look at the front end, the heavy-duty frame is about to fall off. We've completely destroyed the spiked plating at that location. So our front end is almost entirely trashed. This entire heavy-duty frame is about to disappear. We've got damage to the wheels, lots of plating damage. So it's mostly front-end damage, but occasionally we were taking hits to the interior of the vehicle too. So it's really well modeled. It's a really cool system once you know what's going on. It looks like we lost an armored wheel, but the other wheels are apparently still enough to keep it going. So 3 wheels is drivable, but tons and tons of damage. So eventually they would have stopped our vehicle, or it would have faulted when we lost the engine, or lost another wheel, for example. So you got to be really careful about that. It's not just free killing forever. You pay the price, so be aware. But that's vehicles. So I think that'll do it for this particular course. That gets you enough information to know whether a vehicle is drivable, how to get in it, and how to actually practice driving. So I wish you well in your driving adventures in the apocalypse. Hope you found the course helpful. And I've got my social media contacts down below. If you have any questions that weren't covered in the course, feel free to visit me on the Discord channel I've got linked, or leave comments here, and I'll be happy to help you in any way possible. Look forward to seeing you in future episodes. Have a good apocalypse. Bye-bye.